This is the 2020 Honda CRV. It's a mid-size 7-seater crossover. How does it compare to the Geely Azkarra, the Chery Tiggo 8, and the Toyota RAV4? Let's find out. When the CRV was released back in the 90s, it was revolutionary. It was among the first crossovers ever released, and I actually owned one. What I remember most about it was that it came with a picnic table. The CRV has gotten a lot bigger since it was first introduced in the 90s. It is now a 7-seater, and it's offered with a diesel engine. Looking at the CRV from this angle, it is pretty sinister looking. It looks wide, it looks muscular, and it looks pretty angry. In my book, that's a good thing. It has a very broad looking face with upswept LED headlamps. When you see it from the side, it looks low slung. The roofline is pretty low, and the windshield is very steeply raked. It's like the lower half looks beefy and muscular, while the top half looks sleek and aerodynamic. The CRV has an abundance of chrome accents. The chrome accent around the window line gives it a more premium touch, and it accentuates its swept-back design. The back is framed by these L-shaped taillights, which makes the rear end look more squared off. Ground clearance is 198mm, which is not bad for city driving. You probably have no intention of driving the CRV off-road anyway. The CRV has 18-inch wheels, wrapped in meaty 235/60/18 Michelin tires. Overall, I can't really think of much to complain about, except for this slab of chrome on the grille, which I think is a bit too much. But overall, I think it's a pretty handsome looking machine. Okay, so this is the interior of the Honda CRV. Now, compared to the Geely Azkarra, this doesn't look as luxurious. But compared to other Japanese crossovers like the Toyota RAV4, I think this looks better. You have a lot of soft touch materials. This is soft touch, and you have fake leather stitching on it. You have these faux wood panels over here. This is leather, this is leather, this is also soft padded. The seats are covered in leather. They have pretty good bolstering. Both front seats are manually adjustable. On the top of the line model, they're power adjustable. So the CRV doesn't have a gear shift lever. Instead, you have these buttons over here. This is the drive button, neutral, reverse, and park. It takes some getting used to, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. Over here you have one 12-volt outlet. You have two cup holders. You have a lot of storage over here, and you have one 12-volt outlet, one USB port, another USB port, and one HDMI outlet. Storage here is pretty deep. This is removable. Okay, how do you remove this? The steering wheel is leather covered. It's nicely padded. You have paddle shifters, and the paddle shifters move with the steering wheel. The right one is for upshifting, the left one is for downshifting. You have an electronic parking brake. You have a start-stop button. The CRV has a 7-inch screen, which looks pretty tiny for a crossover in this price bracket. But I like the fact that it's integrated into the dashboard. Unlike the RAV4's infotainment screen, which looks aftermarket. You have dual zone climate control. So you have navigation. The graphics look a bit dated, but it's responsive enough. So unlike the top of the line model, this one does not have a panoramic sunroof. Okay, so I'm at the back seat now. Legroom is pretty good. Headroom is... I have about this much headroom. I'd say that's about 1.5 to 2 inches. Over here you have 2 aircon vents, and you have 2 USB ports over here. You have a center armrest with 2 cup holders. 60-30 split on the second row seats. You have third row seats, and the third row seats also have their own aircon vents. You have 4 vents over here and fan controls over here.
Hi guys, I am Jay Walker's girlfriend, and I'm actually 5 feet. So, as you can see, and I like the leather feel of this seat, and I love.
This is the CRV S Diesel, which sells at 1.86 million pesos, and that's one tier below the top of the line SX model. On this S variant, you lose the power adjustable seats and the panoramic sunroof of the SX. You also don't get Honda Sensing, which is Honda's suite of active safety features. You also don't get cruise control. You do lose a couple of features, but it doesn't feel too stripped down. Also, if you compare it to mid-range diesel PPVs like the Fortuner G and the Montero GLS, the CRV S is actually pretty well equipped. To put it in reverse, just press this button over here. And you have a reverse camera with active guidelines. You also have multiple views that you can choose from. There's super wide, normal, and a top-down view of your rear bumper. You also get a camera on your right side mirror, so you can see your blind spot there. You get dual zone climate control, navigation, tire pressure monitoring, and 6 airbags. Engine. Here's a fun fact. The first gen CRV had more horsepower than this current gen CRV. The first gen's 2-liter gasoline engine had 126 horsepower. This current gen has 120 horsepower. The current gen though has a lot more torque since it's a diesel. It has 300 Newton meters of torque. All diesel CRVs here in the Philippines are mated to a 9-speed automatic. Driving impressions. I was expecting the CRV to be sluggish because of its 1.6-liter diesel engine, but it didn't feel as underpowered as I expected. It may only have 120 horsepower, but it has 300 Newton meters of torque, and you feel that torque down low. It is not fast, but it feels immediate. You don't have to wait for higher RPMs to feel the torque. At full throttle, it's nowhere near as fast as the Geely Azkarra or even the Tiggo 8. But for your daily commute, it should feel fast enough. While it's pretty quiet when you're at idle, every time you squeeze the throttle, you get reminded that you're driving a diesel. You get that familiar diesel clatter. If you're coming from a gasoline-powered crossover, you'd notice it right away. But if you're used to diesel PPVs, then it shouldn't bother you. The main reason that people buy diesels here in the Philippines is fuel efficiency. And in that department, the Honda CRV doesn't disappoint. In the city, it can do 9 kpl, and on the highway, you can get up to 24 kpl. The suspension is soft, but not so soft that it makes the CRV boaty. The ride is pretty comfortable. NVH levels are okay for a diesel crossover, but of course it's not as quiet as gasoline-powered crossovers like the Geely Azkarra and the Tiggo 8. One convenient feature is that when you activate the right turn signal, the screen shows you your blind spot. It only works when you're turning right though. The 7-inch screen looks pretty small for this price segment. Also, it doesn't have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you do get navigation. One difference between this model and the top-of-the-line model is that you don't get Honda sensing. So you don't get adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, and a 360 camera. Competition. Geely Azkarra. The Geely Azkarra's interior is undoubtedly nicer looking. You get Napa leather seats on the Azkarra, a large 12-inch infotainment screen. It is only a 5-seater though. The advantage of the CRV, number one, is the brand. While Geely is a good brand, Honda has been around in the Philippines for a long time now, and they have a proven track record here. And number two, the CRV can accommodate more people. Tiggo 8. Like the CRV, the Tiggo 8 is also a 7-seater. The Tiggo 8 is a bigger vehicle, and its third-row seats are more usable. The Tiggo 8 is also much cheaper at 1.3 million. It is not as fuel efficient though as the CRV since it has a gasoline engine. At its price of 1.8 million and with its diesel engine, the CRV S is also in competition with diesel PPVs like the Montero, the Fortuner, and the Terra. Compared to diesel PPVs, the CRV feels more composed on the road. It has better driving dynamics, and it's more comfortable. For more heavy-duty activities though, like towing and off-roading, PPVs have the upper hand. Also, I think the CRV's interior looks better than the interiors of the Terra, the Montero, and the Fortuner. Considering that this is a Japanese crossover with a long and proven history here in the Philippines and throughout the world, 1.8 million isn't such a bad deal. You get a nice interior, a nice exterior, a very fuel-efficient engine, and space for 7 people. If you value comfort and maneuverability over rugged looks and interior space, this might be a more practical choice than mid-range diesel PPVs, which cost about the same. I wish it came with a picnic table though. I kinda miss that. Many thanks to Honda Manila for lending me the CRV. If you are interested in buying a CRV, check out the links below.